If there is one thing men deeply respect in a woman and respond to on an emotional level, it is this: a woman with clear and strong boundaries. More than looks, more than charm, and more than trying to say the perfect thing, boundaries are what truly set a woman apart. A woman who knows what she accepts, what she will not tolerate, and how she expects to be treated carries a kind of presence that is impossible to ignore. She does not need to force respect, chase validation, or constantly prove her worth, because her boundaries already communicate that she values herself. And when a woman truly values herself, other people feel it. A boundary, in simple terms, is a clear standard you set to protect your emotional well-being, your peace, your values, your time, your body, and your energy. Think of it like an invisible space around you. Inside that space are your beliefs, your self-respect, your needs, your comfort, and your peace of mind. Every person you meet has their own space too, and in relationships, those spaces naturally come into contact. If your space is weak, unclear, or constantly shifting, people will step into it however they want. They will decide what is acceptable, how far they can go, and what they can get away with. But when your boundaries are strong, people immediately understand that there are standards in place. They may not always like them, but they will recognize them, and that recognition creates respect. One of the most important boundaries a woman can have is emotional boundaries. These are the boundaries that protect your feelings and determine how you allow others to engage with your emotional world. If you constantly feel guilty, ashamed, dismissed, or misunderstood every time you express yourself, then your emotional boundaries may not be strong enough. A lot of women get into the habit of explaining and defending every feeling they have. They say something hurt them, and they are told they are overreacting. They express disappointment, and they are made to feel dramatic. Over time, they stop speaking honestly because they do not feel emotionally safe. That is a dangerous place to be because once you start silencing your own feelings to keep someone comfortable, you slowly lose touch with yourself. Strong emotional boundaries mean you do not let someone define your feelings for you. You do not allow your emotional reality to be mocked, minimized, or rewritten just because it makes someone else uncomfortable. You are able to say, "This is how I feel," without needing permission for it. It also means you do not become an emotional dumping ground for someone else. A lot of women feel responsible for always being available, always listening, always carrying the emotional weight of the relationship, even when they are overwhelmed themselves. They fear that if they are not constantly supportive, the other person will lose interest or pull away. But support should never require self-abandonment. You are allowed to care about someone without making yourself emotionally available at all times. You are allowed to say, "I care, but I do not have the capacity for this right now." That is not selfish. That is healthy. Another powerful type of boundary is time and energy boundaries. Your time is your life, and your energy is one of your most valuable resources. The way someone treats your time says a lot about how they value you. If someone keeps canceling on you, rescheduling without real effort, disappearing and reappearing when it suits them, or expecting you to always be available, that is not something small. That is disrespect. A lot of people tolerate inconsistent behavior because they want to seem understanding, easygoing, or patient. But being understanding should not mean becoming endlessly available for people who make very little effort. A person who respects you will respect your time. They will communicate clearly, follow through, and understand that your life does not revolve around their convenience. Strong time and energy boundaries mean you stop over-accommodating behavior that drains you. You stop rewarding inconsistency with more access. You stop rearranging your life for people who barely make room for you in theirs. You recognize that attention is not the same as effort, and access is not the same as commitment. Some people do not want a real relationship with you. They simply want access to your softness, your support, your attention, and your emotional warmth. That is why boundaries matter. They help you separate people who genuinely value you from people who only enjoy what they can get from you. Once you begin protecting your time and energy, you become calmer, clearer, and less likely to be pulled into dynamics that leave you exhausted. Then there are intellectual boundaries, which are about your thoughts, values, beliefs, opinions, and the right to think for yourself. Many relationship problems are not really about love. They are about values that do not align. People often think compatibility means agreeing on everything, but that is not true. What matters more is mutual respect. Two people can have different backgrounds, different beliefs, and different ways of seeing the world, and still have a healthy relationship if there is respect. But when respect is missing, disagreement quickly turns into belittling, shaming, or trying to control the other person's perspective. If someone constantly makes you feel foolish for your opinions, pressures you to abandon your values, or treats your perspective like it has no depth or validity, then your intellectual boundaries are being crossed. Strong intellectual boundaries mean you do not betray your values just to keep a connection. You do not force yourself to accept things that make you uncomfortable simply because you are afraid of being seen as close-minded. You do not need to argue your standards into being valid. Not everything has to become a debate. Sometimes two people simply want different things, believe different things, or live by different principles. That does not always make one person wrong and the other right. It simply means the difference matters. A woman with strong intellectual boundaries is able to say, "I respect your view, but that does not work for me," and leave it there. She does not need to shrink her mind to make herself easier to keep. Physical boundaries are another major area, and this is where self-respect becomes especially clear. Physical boundaries are about your body, your personal space, your pace, your comfort, and your sense of safety. One of the strongest things a woman can do is refuse to disconnect from her body just to keep someone interested. Too many women are taught to ignore discomfort, to push past hesitation, or to say yes when they really mean no because they do not want to create tension. But tension is not always a sign that something is wrong. In fact, respect often requires tension. A boundary creates friction because it interrupts someone's expectations. That is not a bad thing. It is often the moment when you learn who someone really is. If someone reacts badly when you slow things down, say no, or ask for your space to be respected, that tells you everything you need to know. The wrong person sees a boundary as rejection or a challenge. The right person sees it as clarity. If a person only stays warm, attentive, and interested when they are getting physical access to you on their preferred timeline, then their intentions were never as deep as they seemed. A strong physical boundary says, "I move at the pace that feels safe and right for me." It says, "My body is not something anyone earns access to just because they showed interest." It says, "My comfort matters, and I will not override it to avoid disappointing someone." That kind of boundary protects not only your body, but also your peace and your judgment. Financial boundaries matter too, and many people do not realize how much money reveals about character, maturity, and emotional health. Financial boundaries are about how you protect your resources, your stability, and your sense of responsibility in relationships. A lot of unhealthy dynamics begin when money gets involved too quickly, too vaguely, or too emotionally. If someone you are dating begins asking for financial help, making you feel guilty for not helping, or trying to build emotional closeness through financial dependence, that should immediately make you more cautious. Caring about someone does not mean becoming financially responsible for them. Compassion is beautiful, but compassion without discernment can easily be exploited. Strong financial boundaries mean you do not make money decisions from guilt, pressure, or emotional confusion. You ask questions. You slow things down. You pay attention to patterns. You do not confuse someone's need with your obligation. And even in serious relationships, money should be discussed with honesty and clarity. Financial values, spending habits, saving habits, expectations, and responsibilities all matter. Love does not magically solve money issues, and avoiding those conversations only creates resentment later. A woman with strong financial boundaries understands that being generous does not mean being careless, and being loving does not mean becoming financially unprotected. What makes boundaries so powerful is that they do not just change how others treat you, they change how you see yourself. Every time you honor a boundary, you send yourself a message that your feelings matter, your time matters, your body matters, your values matter, and your peace matters. That builds self-trust. And once a woman has self-trust, she moves differently. She becomes less desperate for reassurance, less likely to chase mixed signals, and less willing to betray herself for temporary attention. She becomes more grounded, more authentic, and more emotionally steady. And that energy changes the entire dynamic of how she is perceived. This is also why men tend to deeply respect women with strong boundaries. Boundaries create clarity. They show that a woman is not easily manipulated by charm, inconsistency, pressure, or empty words. They show that she is not looking to be chosen at any cost. She is not available for confusion, casual disrespect, or emotional games. She is open, but she is not loose with access. She is kind, but she is not naive. She is warm, but she is not willing to self-abandon in order to keep a connection alive. That kind of woman stands out because she is not operating from fear. She is operating from self-respect. Of course, not everyone will like your boundaries. Some people will feel challenged by them. Some will call you difficult, cold, too much, or hard to deal with. But that does not mean the boundaries are wrong. Often, it simply means they were benefiting from your lack of them. People who enjoyed unlimited access to your time, your emotions, your body, or your energy may not celebrate the moment you become clear. That is okay. Boundaries are not there to make everyone comfortable. They are there to make your life healthier. It is also important to understand that boundaries are not about controlling other people. They are about controlling your response. You cannot force someone to respect you, but you can decide what you will no longer participate in. You cannot make someone emotionally mature, consistent, honest, or considerate, but you can remove yourself from situations where those qualities are missing. That is what a true boundary is. It is not a speech. It is not a threat. It is a decision. It is the quiet understanding that if something continues to violate your peace, your standards, or your dignity, you will take action to protect yourself. Many women struggle to set boundaries because guilt gets in the way. They do not want to sound rude. They do not want to hurt anyone's feelings. They do not want to lose the relationship. They do not want to be misunderstood. So they over-explain, soften everything, give endless chances, and wait far too long before finally speaking up. But strong boundaries do not require cruelty. They require clarity. You do not need a long emotional performance to say what you mean. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is also the simplest. That does not work for me. I am not comfortable with that. I need more consistency than this. I am not available for this conversation right now. If this continues, I will step back. Clear, calm, and direct is enough. At the deepest level, boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about staying connected to yourself while relating to others. They allow you to love without losing your center. They allow you to be generous without being drained, open without being used, and connected without being controlled. A woman without boundaries may seem easier to deal with at first, but over time she becomes exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from herself. A woman with boundaries may create a little friction at first, but over time she creates healthier relationships, deeper respect, and more genuine connection. So if this is an area you struggle with, start by paying attention to where you feel resentment, confusion, and emotional exhaustion. Pay attention to where you keep saying yes when your heart says no. Pay attention to where you feel pressured to be more available, more agreeable, or more physically open than you truly want to be. Those are the places where boundaries are needed most. And every time you choose to honor yourself in those moments, you grow stronger. Little by little, you stop abandoning yourself to be loved, and you start realizing that the right kind of love will never require that from you. In the end, strong boundaries are one of the clearest signs of self-respect. They show that you know who you are, what you value, and how you deserve to be treated. They protect your peace, preserve your dignity, and make it easier for the right people to recognize your worth. And when a woman truly understands that, everything changes. She no longer tries to hold relationships together by over-giving, over-explaining, or over-compromising. She lets her standards speak for her. And that quiet strength is one of the most respected qualities she can ever have.